Hello, you are listening to Dr. Sushma Singh. Today in Unit 32, New Social Movements, let us start topic distinguishing old from the new. However, it is problematic to use organizational form as a criteria to distinguish new social movement from that of the old one. First, there is a continuum from loose to tight organization, and because there may be a progress within the movements towards the more formal and hierarchical end of this continuum over a period of time. To Scott, there are important continuities between the new and the old social movements. Thus, the claim the new movements needs to be understood in a way which is qualitatively different from the traditional approaches cannot be sustained on empirical ground alone. It is rather through the underlying social changes and distinguishedness be identified. Irrespective of the distinction between the old and the new social movements, we may identify the crucial roles played by the social movement to develop a critique of the society. In the process of globalization, when the state is emerging to be more and more technocratic and all powerful, the voices and the views of the individual citizens against the discontent of various forms remain mostly unheard. Again, in the countries where the state represents the dominant section of the population and the state machinery is involved in the corrupt practices, the access of the marginalized people even to the minimum need of the life remained unrealized. Social movements provide a framework to develop a critique of the society. It brings the institutional arrangements of the society under close scrutiny. The organizing mechanism, collective activism, and the leadership of social movement provide the required space not only to develop a critique of the society but also for a transformative politics within the given structure. It also provides the space for the emergence of a plural social structure with representative civil bodies to function as watching dog in a liberal democracy. Through this critique, social movement produces a new collective identity. Ehrman and Jamieson have tried to define social movement as processes in the formation by which individuals create new kind of social identity. To them, all social life can be seen as a combination of action and construction whose meanings is deprived from the context and the understanding of the actors derived from it. They emphasize the creative role of the consciousness and cognition in human action, what they call the cognitive praxis, which transforms groups of individuals into social movements. Thus, the cognitive praxis give social movement particular meaning and consciousness. Now let us move to the next point, new social movements and quest for new identity. In the last unit, we have mentioned the significance of the process of identity formation in a social movement, which has always played crucial roles to provide a sense of togetherness, feeling, and a sense of belonging to a group in all the critical stages progression of the movement. It not only develops linkages among the members of a group but also establishes linkages with the wider social processes. The process of collective identity formation not only redefines old identities but also generates new identities with new perspectives. In recent decades, in the efforts to identify newness in emerging social movements of the 1960s and thereafter, there has also been a genuine interest to have a fresh look at the issue of identity in social movements. In the structural functional analysis of the society, empirical categories, for example, tribe, caste, race, age, etc., has got a place of prominence while describing collective identities of these categories. In the Marxian analysis, on the other hand, economic position has got a place of prominence in defining collectivities as class. In this paradigm, social identity has been reduced to class identity, which undergoes a process of formation or transformation from class in itself to class for itself. We shall highlight this formation or transformation a little later. However, since late 1960s and onward, especially after the proliferation of the students, Greenpeace, Black civil rights, women, etc. movements in the United States and the Western Europe, efforts are made to comprehend and analyze the emerging processes of new collective identity formation in these social movements and the guiding principles towards these formations. It has been widely realized that it is not merely the empirical and the economic class position, but rather the issue of values, culture, subjectivity, morality, empowerment, etc. played crucial roles towards the formation of new collective identities in these movements. For example, after studying students' movement in Europe and America, Bertrex adds the view that subjectivity and the idealism are essential elements of social movement and must be taken seriously. To quote him, subjectivity is central to an understanding of action and especially in the context of social movements, where action is not just norm-abiding behavior but innovative and risky. Such concepts as attitudes and values denote only one fraction of the personality, while subjectivity refers to the subject in its totality. Indeed, Bertrex talks about the collective subjectivity. It concerns with the drastic change in the fabric of social life that takes place when a new movement is born. Regarding idealism, citing examples from the first developing Western societies, he observes that people who started social movements were moved by a strong moral feelings by idealism rather than by drive towards self-interest. Social movements help generate a sense of collective identity and new ideas that recognizes the reality itself. This reality is indeed context, culture, historicity, and group specific. Malossi has emphasized on collective identity formation, which is an achieved definition of a situation constructed and negotiated through the constitution of social networks, which then connect the members of a group or movement through collective action to provide distinct meaning to collective action. To him who holds individual together as a we can never be completely translated into the logic of means, ends, calculation or political rationality, but always carries with it margins of non-negotiability in the regions for ways of acting together. To him, social movements grow around relationship of new social identity that are voluntarily conceived to empower members in defense of this identity. Ehrman and Jamieson assert that by articulating consciousness, social movement provides public spaces for generating new thoughts, activating new actors, generating new ideas. Thus, by producing new knowledge, by reflecting on their own cognitive identity, by saying what they stand for, by challenging the dominant assumptions of the social order, social movements develop new ideas. Those are fundamental to the process of human creativity. Thus, social movements develop worldviews that restructure cognition, that recognize reality itself. The cognitive praxis of the social movements is an important source of new social images and transformation of societal identities. Hesiodus asserts that the social movements involve actions for doing. The involvement in an action is a matter of consciousness and emotion, of responsibility and intention, of reflection and passion. It is basically moral, global, and individual. Thus, social movements are framed based on a collective identity of various groups, for example, women, environmentalists, students, peasants, workers, etc., who are organized on the basis of common identity and interest. To Alan Scott, in a social movement, the actors' collective identity is linked to their understanding of their social situation. To him, a social movement is a collective actor constituted by individuals who understand themselves to have common interest and at least some significant part of their social existence a common identity. Now let us move to the next point, transformation of identity. Social movements not only help in generating new collective identity, these also provide a broad field for the transformation of social identity. Transforming series into groups and fusion class in itself to the class for itself. Sartre calls series in the normal state of the crowds, that is, series of atomized individuals, each one seen as isolated in his or her inner world, going his or her own way and not caring about the other's way. What Sartre is pointed out, however, is that whenever and wherever this figure is actually doing or even walking in the street, it has a silent companion, social control. The public space is wholly understand the control of the established power. Every individual, whatever she or he thinks of the manifest public discourse, all is well, and its latent content, nothing can be changed. Whether he or she accepts the rule of this power or rejects it, does so secretly, thus behaving as if accepting it. Therefore, each one looking at all the other who work, comply and keep quiet, thinks they are alone in secretly rejecting this social order. When, however, frustration mounts in each person individually, it takes only a small event to trigger an instantaneous and massive change of state, from series to groups or an fusion. As soon as each person in the serialized mass realizes that some other contests the established power as he or she takes one step forward to openly express support. A chain reaction spreads through the atomized series and transforms it into a fluid group, which instantly moves from the status of subordinated passive object to that of subject capable of action. Indeed, new social movements provide the required platform for such transformation. In the Marxian analysis, transformation in the collective identity has been viewed as transformation of the class identities from that of the class in itself to class for itself. In this analogy, however, transformation of societal identity is viewed in terms of the transformation of class identities only. It is important that in the context of the transformation of a social movement, new identities do emerge from within the old ones. For example, in the process of sustained mobilization of the peasantry in the West Bengal and Andhra Pradesh, new identities have emerged in these peasant societies in the form of gender, ethnicity and caste identities. We shall be discussing this issue in the last section of this unit. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.